Welcome back to episode 5 of Malaise 2025, the postseason tournament where we figure out which amiibo is the worst. Now, we've narrowed down the competitors to the final 4, which means they're all going to be getting retrained this year, but we still need to find out who is the absolute worst of the worst, the cream of the crap, if you will. We've got Lucina against Baytwotta. Alright, looks like we're going to be on the Unova Pokemon League. I believe that's what this stage is called. I always get it wrong, though. Lucina with a very strong start. Both of these amiibo actually don't normally perform too terribly, to be quite honest. Baytwotta has definitely had issues, but for some reason this year she keeps getting an early lead and then usually killing herself to end up losing the match. And Lucina is not tremendously terrible either. Falling up air past the ledge, Lucina is able to recover. Baytwotta gets back on the stage. Baytwotta is taking a lot of percentage. Also, I should mention this is going to be a best of 3, so that means we'll have at least 2 matches if both amiibos can win the first and second matches respectively. Then we can actually have 3 matches, because that's how best of 3 works. You can also think of it as the first of 2 wins, because that's more than half. Baytwotta getting Lucina off stage. Lucina gets back on stage without much of an incident. Baytwotta going for a down smash, not necessarily a bad play. If Lucina had gone for any sort of gutsy or risky option, especially falling off the ledge, double jumping back to stage with, say, a forward air, you don't see that a lot from Lucina players, but I'm sure someone's at least considered it. It's something that every character can do, but since get-up options give you invincibility, you normally don't want to be going for those. Up special actually catching Baytwotta out of her recovery. Now Lucina is dealt about 80% to Baytwotta, who finally got her first kill on Lucina. Baytwotta dancing around Lucina, actually doing a significantly better job than a lot of her previous matches for some reason. I don't know if you remember all the previous matches these amiibo have had, but they definitely seemed less fluent or capable, I guess I should say, in those matches. Maybe I guess when the amiibos are put against amiibos on their own relative skill level, they stop underperforming. Up smash, interesting choice. A down smash probably could have gotten a kill. It, of course, would depend on if Lucina teched or not, but usually it's worth going for because the up smash merely put percentage on Lucina's character. Oh, a trade there. That wasn't great for Baytwotta, though. She traded an aerial with a smash attack. And wouldn't you know it, the smash attack steal one forward smash by the ledge is going to kill Lucina. Final stock, Baytwotta is only about 40% behind. It's not impossible, but these amiibo usually don't make the big comebacks. Baytwotta able to recover, Lucina also able to recover, actually hitting Baytwotta for her trouble. Baytwotta only getting the first 2 hits of that jab combo. Baytwotta is taking a lot of trades, not something you want to be doing when you're at 100% and your opponent is much, much less. Baytwotta tries to get up smash read, but Lucina lands on the platform and low profiles that forward smash. Now Baytwotta is just realizing that she needs to get the kill and fast, throwing out smash attacks all over the place. Barely runs into the blast zone. That's gonna mean Lucina takes the first match. And we're right up at the second match, Lucina against Baytwotta. Looks like they're going to be on Lilat for this one. That might actually be a problem for Baytwotta because once or twice she has kind of just struggled to recover. Ironic that Baytwotta actually has a really good recovery. Lots of different ways she can mix it up, and she can also use it as combos against your opponent. That forward smash, Lucina barely able to grab the ledge. She was able to recover for that. But I say that Bayonetta may have a hard time recovering, specifically because of the unique trajectory of her recovery specials. Most specifically, her side special might put her below the stage. And of course, Lila is notorious for doing this thing where the spaceship will actually tilt to the side. It's actually predictable and on set intervals, but if you're not expecting it, then it will seem as if the stage is actually tilting away from you when, you know, you needed it the least. We are in a hazards off rule set. I don't know if that actually disables the sway of the ship. I don't know if the ship tilting slightly counts as a hazard. Dancing around each other, Bayonetta gets the next blood. Lucina safely gets back on stage, smacking Bayonetta away, running straight at her and getting hit by a giant fist. I'm sure there's some sort of metaphor in there. I can't think going off the top of my head though. Back air will kill Baytwotta. Lucina's back air is actually one of her better killing options, especially if you can land it off stage. Bayonetta, well, Baytwotta wasn't off stage, but she was just above the ledge, so it still was obviously enough. Forward smash, catching Lucina off guard, at least caught me off guard. That's going to take the second stock. Baytwotta, I guess, really didn't like facing the first loss. At least showing that she's capable of winning a match. Hitting Lucina with 3 enormous uppercuts in a row. Getting the tech. It's actually very difficult tech. Not because the input is for some reason harder on this stage, but because the platform, the side of the platform is so small, it's actually tough to decide if you need to be teching or not. If you go for a tech, you have to hit the, well, it's usually the L or R buttons, but it's whatever you have your shield button set to. I think you can also do it with grab, but that's because the grab button is also the shield plus A button macro, but that's another conversation. So effectively, if you don't get a tech and you're expecting one, you air dodge. And on some characters, you will get killed for that. And on a lot of characters with a long-reaching recovery, you can still get killed for it by your opponent. Bayonetta goes for a greedy forward smash, and she actually got a... It looked like she got a jump or a special move out before she got hit by the blast zone. That's a little interesting. Normally, most of those moves will change your momentum basically instantly. So it is possible her model just barely clipped the side blast zone. After all we've had this match, we are now down to the last stock. Both characters effectively tied in percentage. Will Baytwotta choke for the 7th match in a row? It's starting to look like it. She's taking a lot of percentage. She really shouldn't be. Lucina goes for the non-grabbing the ledge recovery, actually able to smack Baytwotta for it. Both characters get their feet on the ground. Baytwotta starts a combo. Bails on it. Both characters back to the stage. And an up air is going to kill Baytwotta again. So that means Lucina got the first 2 wins, which means she wins the set. Lucina does not have to fight anymore, but Baytwotta will have to fight in the finals. And on the other side of the bracket, we have Pikachu against Peach. So Pikachu has tragically been retrained before. I honestly did expect Pikachu to be doing better as a result of it. We are starting to see a trend of characters who have been retrained needing multiple retrainings. I can only assume that's because, you know, we didn't get it right the first time, didn't get it right the second time. Peach, I'm not extremely surprised at being one of the final 4. Specifically because Peach is a character who fundamentally operates significantly differently from a lot of the other characters in the game. Her float mechanic is incredibly powerful and strong in the right hands, but if you don't know what you're doing, then it kind of just means you can get back to the stage a little easier. Especially when you include stuff like float cancels, which I don't think you can actually teach the amiibo, but it's part of why Peach is such a good character, especially when Smash Ultimate first came out. the ability to use aerials on the ground. Turns out that a lot of Peach's aerials are better than her ground moves. And with float cancels, you can give a lot of them very little lag. And get some pretty insane combos, actually. Peach fakes an edge guard. Well, maybe she was planning on it until Pikachu faded away to not get edge guarded. Kind of one of the perks of the character. She didn't even need to use her float to do it that time. But it's always an option she has. Pikachu goes for the Thunder. Peach was not there anymore, though. Something to know when you're going against live players, not the CPU opponents, is that sometimes when you go for something, you effectively, once you go for something the first time, then your opponent knows that that's something that you aspire to do. So it kind of shows your hand. For example, if you have any character with one of the charging projectiles, you can charge up the projectile and then use it in a certain situation, and your opponent immediately thinks, ah, next time I'm in the same situation, they're going to use the charged projectile again. Which makes it harder to get off, because your opponent knows to expect it. Especially against any character where if you've played multiple players of the same character, you start to find trends in certain characters. Maybe it's because there's only so many different characters you run into online. I'm pretty sure I've run into at least every character in the game once. But I'm also sure that there are some characters who are much more popular to run into than others. And I'm sure that part of it too is that it also depends on how fun they are to go against. For example, Samus is a character who's notorious for just a whole bunch of camping behaviors, standing off at the side of the stage and shooting missiles. So people don't really enjoy going against that, even though Samus is pretty good. And as a result, you get a lot of players who will go against the Samus, have a terrible time, and just not rematch them, because that's something you're allowed to do with Smash Brothers. You're never obligated to give someone a certain number of matches against them. So that also means that annoying characters, or characters who are easier to play in a frustrating way, also show up a lot more online, because the people playing those characters can never really get a rematch, because everyone just wants to play someone else and have more fun. It's also even more interesting because if you want, Smash Bros. Online does actually have a casual mode. Well, you get to change your rules, but usually you can find people with similar rules. It's not that hard. But the problem with the free-for-all mode online, well, there's a couple problems. Not that I think it shouldn't exist. I actually endorse the idea completely, even if I don't particularly play it much myself. So the first problem that comes up is that whenever somebody dies, they always disconnect from the game, and the server takes about 30 seconds to ping that person's console to make sure that they've actually disconnected and that they didn't just drop a packet or something. The problem being that everybody always disconnects whenever they die, which I understand. You're playing Smash Brothers Online, you just died and there's 3 more minutes left in the match. You're not going to want to play again, or at least you're going to want to find a rematch, take the disconnect penalty if it even applies, and then just find another match to play. Which, again, I understand, but it does mean that if you are one of the people who didn't just get eliminated, every time somebody loses one of their stocks, you have to wait 30 seconds to keep playing the game. And that's actually a design concern that's specifically mitigated by what I guess I call the default rules of Smash Brothers. The intention is that you play the timer mode, the timed match, I guess, of the expectation is about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. You can actually tell because that's about how long most of the songs are in the game, and there's reasons for that. But that mode does have its own different design problems. The big one being that you can lose a match despite doing everything perfectly simply because someone else performed better than you. It could be someone you didn't even go against. They could have just farmed kills on the easy-to-kill player. And it really just doesn't feel fun to be playing a game and then suddenly the game's over and then you count up whoever has the most points. Especially when you consider that that's actually entirely how sports work. you play soccer and you try to score points before the time is up. I guess one of the differences, though, is that when you play a game of soccer, that's going for, what, like an hour on the clock, not including half times and other interruptions. And a lot of other sports go even longer, especially with, again, halftime rules and timeouts and whatnot. A football game is supposed to go for 1 hour, but it always ends up going for 4. Just pretty much every 15 minutes takes about an hour of real time to do setup and whatnot. But again, when you're doing something for an hour, it actually does feel emotionally more gratifying at the end. You get a whole hour to score points. It doesn't feel like you accidentally made one mistake and let the other guy get a free throw, and because of that you just lost the whole game. Whereas in Smash Brothers, normal tournament settings will have you go for maybe about 8 minutes with 3 stocks. If you accidentally do something that gets yourself killed, that's a third of your stock count and about 2.5 minutes of game time if you were going to drag it out until super sudden death every single time. So it is interesting, all the design concerns that do have to go into the game. I don't think there's ever a perfect solution. I will say, though, that pretty much everybody prefers to use the stock battle rule set, where you have a strict number of lives, because then you feel responsible for any of your wins or losses. That if you don't fight somebody, it doesn't matter, because near the end, it's going to be just the two of you anyway, then you will be fighting them. But then that does leave the problem of people who get eliminated early no longer getting to play the game. Pikachu getting a forward air on Peach near the side of the screen, 13 seconds to go. That match almost went to time. And our next match is going to be, you guessed it, Pikachu against Peach. Alright, looks like we're going to be on Skyloft for this one. So, back on topic about different rules balancing. This actually comes to be a problem in Mario Kart, believe it or not. So, in recent Mario Kart games, they changed how battle mode works. I can actually say that in Mario Kart 8, originally on the Wii U, they had a much different battle mode that everybody hated. So they did bring back Balloon Battle and a couple others from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And for Mario Kart World, it appears to be the same. I haven't actually gotten to play the game much myself. A little bit, but I don't have it yet. You know, gotta consider, like, a Switch 2 isn't free. It costs money. And also right now there's only like the one game on it, but that one will be fixed with time. But the new Balloon Battle format, it used to be that you would have a certain number of balloons. It kind of changed from game to game, but it was usually 3 to 5. You would have 3 to 5 balloons, and when you lost all the balloons, you were out. Last one standing wins. Makes sense. It was actually kind of cool to play Mario Kart as a more fighting... I wouldn't call it a fighting game, but fighting focused. Definitely an engagement-driven. Green shells become incredibly valuable because each one can possibly delete a third of your opponent's remaining health. Or if they only have one balloon, it can delete 100% of your opponent's remaining health. So they changed it so that you start out with a certain number of balloons, and then the match goes for a certain amount of time. Which I will say does make more sense when you're dealing with 12 or 24 players. Actually, don't know if Mario Kart World does battle mode with 24 players, but it can do a lot more than it used to be 4. So the idea is that you have so much time to rack up points, but what that ended up doing was encouraging a whole bunch of drive-bys, where you just kind of drive by the field, just throw stuff all the time. Find a banana, throw it down somewhere. Find a green shell, just kind of throw it at people. Like, obviously, if you can guarantee the hit, that's even better. But then you would end up at the match, you'd, for example, taken out 7 people, and you'd be feeling great, and then it turns out that someone else who you saw maybe twice killed 9 people. And that he just sort of wins for that. A kind of similar thing would be if any sort of large group sport, for example, in golf, there's no real interaction with the other players, unless you're playing the Mario Golf Strikers Charged. Mario Super Golf, the one on the Switch. If you're not playing that specific thing of golf, you kind of just... It's up to you to make sure that your game is as optimized as possible, because you can't really interact with the opponent. But also when you're playing with golf, you're usually playing with, I don't know, 1 to 6 friends on a course. So you actually do get to monitor the situation as it goes through. Whereas in, for example, a tournament setting, because of the large number of entrants, I'm sure every venue does it differently, but you have to get people started and just keep running them through. So while someone's on hole number 5, someone else is on hole number 1, because if you waited for the first guy to finish before the next person started, that would take all day, possibly multiple days. Now, in a tournament it makes sense because you specifically sign up, compete, and see who does the best. But when you're playing Mario Kart, it's a little bit weird to be going around throwing turtle shells at everyone, and then you find out, oh yeah, guess what, you got second place. Or maybe you won, can you explain why? And on top of that, there's another problem in that if you lose all of your balloons in the newer mode, you lose half or so of your balloons, I don't know what the exact formula is, but you lose a significant amount of your points. Which is a problem because the whole game mode is about getting points. Which also means that, quite honestly, you can usually lose the game if you happen to lose your last balloon in the last 30 seconds of the match. Because you may have 11 points and everyone else only has 7 at the most. And then you lose your last health, you lose half your points that you've gathered, and now you've got 4, or 3, or whatever the rounding measurement is. And then you lose. Simply because you ran out of other people ran out of health before you did when it was worth less life. So those are some of the design issues of the different ways of playing the game that I think actually kind of do a good parallel back to Smash Bros. Ultimate, which, yes, I know I've talked about Mario Kart for a bit, but that is the game we're watching. That's kind of what the time mode feels like in Smash Ultimate. That the time's up and you sort of just look at who won. And they have taken measures to actually prevent it. Something that a lot of people don't seem to know is that in any timed match, the winning player will actually get a little faint glow. It's like a little yellow spark thing. Maybe every 10 to 30 seconds, I don't know what the timing is on it. But if you know to look out for it, it will tell you who the leading player is. The idea being that then everyone else knows who to team up on. That actually being something that puts the control back into the player of, I didn't win, and maybe you have score display on, maybe you have score display off. That's actually a setting you can toggle as well. But either way, you still do get the winning gang up on this person spark. Because again, it does mean that even if you don't have any score information, you at least know who you can be fighting to increase your standings. Instead of just kind of hitting people and hoping it does your objective. Peach actually with a... Well, I want to say it's a great parry, but I honestly think it was probably an accidental parry. Simply because Pikachu's neutral air has a whole bunch of multi-hits. Sour Spot at the down air is going to take out Peach. Pikachu didn't even lose a stock that game. And that's going to bring us to the finals. Baytwotta against Peach. Little behind the curtains information for you. So the Switch 2 is out. Yeah, that's how long this has taken. The Switch 2 came out since I started this year's tournament season. That's on me. I always think I get this done faster than I end up doing. I guess such is the cost of hubris. Anyways, the importance of the Switch 2 being out is that you can actually play pretty much every Switch 1 game on it. And it has faster loading times and whatnot. A lot of games have specific optimizations, but other than that, the Switch 2 is, strictly speaking, more powerful hardware. And this comes into play actually in Smash Ultimate simply because loading times are shorter when you play on Smash Ultimate on the Switch 2. Which will slightly affect these videos, and Baytwotta is not able to make that back. It will slightly affect these videos, specifically because the specific timing and pacing of them is that I always start the match and I show you the amiibo's name and description, mostly so that you can see if they have an amiibo type, since we still have a couple of those around. Unfortunately, there's not really a way to show you what their stat spread is, but everyone's balanced anyway, so you can just learn that once to remember. But that will actually affect, because the intro is I show the characters, I say something, usually saying the characters' names out loud, particularly for the benefit of people who aren't looking at the screen at the moment, which isn't a bad thing. It's, you're watching YouTube, you can do whatever you want. And the match starts, you get the blank loading screen, it'll show the characters' names, and if it takes a really long time to load, it'll actually start loading up the little tooltips in the game. Usually we don't have that, actually specifically because once I get the amiibos loaded into each match, and Baytwotta didn't make it back again, what's happening? When I get the amiibo loaded into the match, I load them in, and by that point the stage is already decided, and the game starts loading everything in the background. Normally when you're playing with friends, the last player will select their character, and then you just head into the match. Which means the game, first of all, didn't even know what your character was until about a second ago. Not really much of a chance they have all their character information loaded and whatnot. So it takes longer to load, and on top of the Switch 2 having stronger hardware, means that it can just do stuff like that faster. Smash Ultimate was pretty much optimized to fit the limits of what the Switch can and cannot do. So when you put it on just faster hardware, a couple of those things just load faster. The only other thing I've heard about how that ever affects the game is that in Squad Strike, the game is faster at loading up your next character. Squad Strike being the game mode where you'll get either 3 or 5 different characters per person, and you actually get to match them all up against each other on the same stage in the same match. Kind of like how in all the classic modes it will load every single character sequentially. Well, that's an all-star mode, but it'll load them all up one by one and just keep throwing them at you. Well, now you get to do that too, and that's cool. But with the faster loading times, it means that there's slightly less waiting time. Quite honestly, in practice, it's not really going to have much of a impact on any of your matches. Technically, it gives you maybe a second and a half less to charge any projectiles you might have. But if that's the deciding factor, then you've got other problems. Baytwotta launched off stage. Will she make it back? She did not make it back. Does Baytwotta not know how to use her double jump? I don't think it got sniped out of her every time. Alright, so Peach is going to take the first match. And here we are, match 2. Baytwotta against Peach. Going to be on WarioWare for this one. Mostly notable, the game has a little bit smaller blast zones than a lot of other stages are used to. Especially the side blast zones. Most other stages go out a lot farther, but this stage just doesn't. It's actually a little bit to Peach's disadvantage because her float and also her up special umbrella, but if you use... it gives her amazing horizontal recovery. Her up special umbrella also does, but if you use it for... And that was a pretty early kill by Baytwotta there. If you use her up special for the horizontal recovery, which sometimes you have to, but it leaves you very exposed, able to get hit by someone, and since if you're using your umbrella to go sideways, you're probably out of your float, and you don't get your float back when you're hit by an opponent. It's only really, as a general trend, I'd say it's moves that put you into special fall. You can use those again, because when you get flinched, you get put out of the special fall. And of course, with every Smash Bros. Game, they start getting more and more creative with how a specific character's recovery works. Baytwotta is actually a good example. She gets a Witch Twist. In fact, she's actually one of the best examples. Witch Twist is her up special. Doesn't go too far. But also, if you double jump, you can use another Witch Twist. But also, you can double jump and cancel that into a Witch Twist really quick. And if you do it quick enough, you actually get your double jump refunded. So you can Witch Twist, double jump, cancel, witch twist, double jump to recover. Which most other characters can't do, because then the story is use your up special, go into special fall, or you double jump, then use your up special, then go into special fall. It's actually interesting because in previous Smash Bros. Games, Link specifically, he could use his up special, the hero spin, but it would, whenever he did that, it would remove his double jump from him if he still had it. Which I don't think anyone else has, and it's not present in Smash Ultimate, which definitely helps the character because it means he can recover like semi-regularly now. Instead, he used to just have a very difficult recovery to use. Up smash is able to kill Peach off the top. Baytwotta is suddenly doing great this match. She did just lose her first stock, but she has twice as many stocks as Peach does. Retreating back to center stage, Bayonetta landing with the down air. So when Bayonetta lands after using special moves, she gets basically extra landing lag recovery to make up for the fact she can use like 6 special moves in the air. And that actually does also apply to the down air. However, the down air has a landing hitbox. So while it does become more laggy, and certainly punishable if you know what you're doing, if you also use the hitbox somewhere near an opponent, it becomes significantly harder to punish. Especially when you add on top of it that Bayonetta can extend any of her moves into bullet arts, which isn't extremely impactful, but she kind of holds her guns out and does a little extra chip damage. It doesn't actually make the opponents flinch, but it is just extra damage she can do if she so chooses. It actually has huge implications for her neutral air, which you've seen Bayonetta use a couple of times, and also her up air, now that I think about it, in that they can extend the moves to keep the hitboxes going. They did make the move extensions have weaker hitboxes to compensate for the fact that you can just make an up air go forever until you land on something or land in the bottom blast zone. But it is yet another landing mix-up that Bayonetta has. So as a result, at least online, I've seen a lot of Bayonettas just go for the down air out of any sort of disadvantageous situation. Baytwotta actually scooped up Peach with the back hitbox over forward air there. Forward smash off the side of the stage is going to kill Peach. Next up, we've got Baytwotta against Peach. Looks like we're going to be on Midgar for this one. Man, I really wish I had more to talk about right now. Sorry for the awkward silence, guys. I guess that's what happens when I'm not constantly talking about Mario Kart and how to design a game so that everything feels fair, but also a player feels like their choices dictate their actions. Oh, Bayonetta side special the wrong way there. That actually put her off stage. She was able to recover, which is actually notable because Baytwotta's messed up several recoveries today that I really think she could have made back. Especially because I don't think the amiibo realizes that you can use your air dodge to recover. Now, Bayonetta's air dodge is a little bit more unique than most. She has what's called the Bat Within, which is basically if you hit her during the beginning or end of her air dodge, she gets a special animation that plays. It slows both of you down, and Bayonetta takes like partial damage from it. As a result, her air dodge's frame data is actually technically one of the worst in the game, but because of the Bat Within extending the duration on both sides of the hitbox, it actually becomes a really great air dodge. If that string of words made any sense to you guys. So because Bayonetta's air dodge is so special, it was actually the first one like that in Smash 4. The only other one being similar is actually Mythra's, which, coincidentally in Smash Ultimate, Mythra's air dodge slows down the opponent, but not Mythra. I'm honestly astounded that that didn't break anything. Although it turns out that the problem with Pyra and Mythra is Pyra, as it turns out. I was actually, quite honestly, expecting it to be Mithra, but I guess that shows that I don't even know everything. Why should I? I didn't even make this game. Why would I know everything about it? But anyways, Bayonetta's air dodge is actually shorter than pretty much every other character's. There may be someone else who also has a shortened air dodge. I don't know of them if they do. Most characters just have the standard length. A couple of them have a slightly longer length. Bayonetta's is short, but that also helps make up for the fact that she becomes very, well, very difficult to punish because she's practically extra invincible for half of it. Also, she is a character who was introduced in Smash 4 when directional air dodges weren't a thing. So if she had an even larger air dodge, that would just increase her recovery even more. Which I suppose, since Bayonetta is actually like below middle on most tier lists, it wouldn't actually be like super game breaking. But honestly, I do think it actually worked out in the end, especially in the late days of Smash 4. Bayonetta was very much a problem. So they did not want that to repeat for Smash Ultimate. Bayonetta just... what? Sorry, I should say Baytwotta, that's technically the amiibo's name. She got overeager, and then she ended up dying for it. Peach landing a lot of up airs. That up tilt hit? Forward smash near the side of the ledge. That is going to take out Peach. But Baytwotta now has 60% she has to make up for. Goes down surprisingly low. Not that Bayonetta as a character can't make it back from that, but Baytwotta the amiibo has a hard time making it back from that. Goes for the up smash, but Peach knows to shield in time. Does chunk out about half of her shield. It is something to know that even if you know your opponent's going to be shielding, you can sometimes just go for stuff like that anyway, simply because the next time you know they're going to get shield poked. Up smash, but Peach was close enough that it didn't hit, and then Peach was able to land behind Baytwotta. Forward smash up close again. There's probably a sour spot. That up smash killed Peach. Peach is a very light character. I didn't expect it to kill. I expected it to be just a bit short. But I'm not also an expert on the blast zone sizes on Midgar. And up next we have Bayonetta against Peach. And when I say Bayonetta, I should have said Baytwotta. Looks like we're going to be on Bridge of Eldin for this one. Interesting. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to affect this game. I'm sure there's one character that prefers to be on the ground over the other, but both of these characters are actually rather aerial-based. Bayonetta has long aerial combos, and Peach can stay in the air for significantly longer than most of the rest of the cast. Baytwotta has been actually doing a pretty great job today of getting people's landing and or spot dodges with the forward smash. Maybe it's just been these last couple of battles, though. Chaining dash attacks in a row, Peach kept getting hit by it, so I can't exactly blame Baytwotta for trying. Back air near the side is going to take Baytwotta's first stock. Dash attack not quite killing Peach. Charged forward smash near the side of the stage will, though. Forward air, smacking Baytwotta out of the air with the very beginning hitbox of it. Usually, when Peach uses the move, it's to hit people in front of her, but that time she was able to hit Baytwotta while she was on top of her. Dash attack near the side of the stage is going to be a quick kill on Peach. Baytwotta hardly any percentage to speak of. It's going to auto-heal, yep, right now. She's got 1%, but that's also probably going to auto-heal soon because Peach isn't particularly engaging. Granted, Bayonetta is doing a good job of playing keep away, but there isn't much purpose when both characters are at 0%. There's no auto heal. You obviously want to make sure that things aren't free for your opponent, but when you're at lower percentages, that's when you can get a lot more risky in your play, simply because the punishment for getting hit is less so than when you have a high percentage, and that could mean your death. Granted, against some characters, actually some very specific characters will have a very good 0% combo, which is a combo they can do when you're at 0% and usually when they're at 0% too. So you do need to watch out for that, make sure that they can't land any of their combo starters. But also, if they refuse to throw out any other move, they're going to hit you with it eventually. Unless, of course, they're so dedicated to it that they can't hit you at all because you find a way to just avoid that move entirely. But if you're able to kill them before they land a combo starter, then, well, that's on them. Shoutouts to whoever composed this song, by the way. It's been in the game ever since Super Smash Bros. Melee, and it's really good. There aren't too many songs from Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, and especially not too many that would work great in a game like Smash Bros. And this is actually two songs mixed together, the two different temple themes. The last temple in the game actually has a different music theme, which actually kind of helps make up for the fact that you've already been through 8 temples at that point, and that the last temple is very much a... I don't want to... It's definitely the toughest temple in the game, I'll tell you that. Oh, both characters playing by the side. I guess they decided they didn't want to. It probably would have been to Peach's advantage simply because she could have gotten that cheesy kill out on Baytwotta. Now that Peach is at 100%, one of Bayonetta's random smash attacks she's been going for might just end the game out of nowhere. And when I say nowhere, I mean the hair portal thing she makes. I think it has a name in Bayonetta. It might be Purgatorio? Side special by the side is enough to kill Baytwotta. Peach really needed that win. Keeps her from not getting last place. Last match of the year, we have Baytwotta against Peach. We're going to be on Norfair for this one. Stage hazards are off, so we don't need to worry about the lava hazards. Peach able to recover. Sometimes the amiibo have interesting priorities in which ledge they go to. Actually makes this a very anticlimactic ending stage, simply because we've actually seen in the preseason, postseason, a lot of random amiibo deaths on here. Simply because of the platform layout, too. Normally in casual modes, this is one of the most intense stages to play on, simply because there's the most stage hazards. Lava will come and cover different amounts of platforms at any given time. And sometimes 2 things of lava will come at the same time, and you can only be on 1 platform. And that's not even including the enormous lava tidal wave. Peach is not going to make that back. Yep. Stubborn until the end, making sure to use her umbrella recovery to delay her death. Both characters missing each other there. That's actually a little surprising. Now, we have had previous matches on this stage. I guess now would be a good time to talk about the oddness of the bottom platform. So, you can go up through the bottom platform, and it doesn't appear to be glitched. It seems to be intentional design. However, you cannot do it on top of the green sphere. So basically it means that half the platform is a one-way platform. You can go up through the bottom, you can actually see Bayonetta poked through there, but you can't actually fall through the platform. I had to do a bit of testing to actually figure all this stuff out. So you can go up through half of it, and down through none of it. The green orb doesn't seem to count as any sort of wall that I could find. I couldn't get anyone to wall cling on it or wall jump off of it. That part I tested a little bit less, though. And I guess it's probably specifically because if you could get a high up wall cling, then you would kind of just be clipping through the floor. So I understand that. It is really interesting, though. Bayonetta did not make that back. She could have tried to air dodge. She really could have. Gets Peach off stage. And kills her off the top with an up smash. I actually expected her to smack her off the side of the screen. Up smash does not reach as far as the forward smash, the move that Bayonetta should have gone for. Peach going low to the bottom platform. Bayonetta starts a two-hit Bayonetta combo. Peach recovering in time this time. Not that I'm bitter. Actually, you know what? I am bitter. I'm trying to teach these amiibo to be the best they can be, and some of them just don't know how to recover properly. And there's only so much I can do to teach them how to do that, because most of what I can teach them is how often they should be using their forward tilt. It doesn't really help with the recovery department. Peach going for a double hip smack. Doesn't get the second one, but it does get her back onto the stage. Bayonetta air dodging to the ledge. That's actually risky because if she misses the ledge, then she is below the stage and she has to endure the full air dodge length. When you air dodge, there's actually a certain length your character has to fall. And it was actually a problem when the game first came out because Jigglypuff had such a low fall speed that her air dodge recovery was significantly longer than almost any other character's. Off the side platform. Peach goes very low, able to recover this time though. Bayonetta air dodges to the ledge again, not getting killed for it. Or thrown near the side of the stage. Bayonetta uses the bat within to escape. Peach is auto-healed, I'd say, kind of out of kill range, and well, now she just got hit back into it. Up smash with some charge is able to take Peach out. That means that Peach is the overall loser of 2025. Baytwotta is one of the bottom four, but she technically avoided the final shame. So that's it for this year. I hope you guys all enjoyed. This is normally where I'd put the teaser for next year, where I'd tease that I'm going to be training more amiibo, but there's only two left. It's Pyra and Mythra, and I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to be able to get them before next year. I could maybe. It's just an extra $30, but I don't want to shill out anything more than I don't have to. Especially if they would reprint them, then I can actually get them. Other than that, we don't really have any sort of announcements. I plan on doing other stuff until next year, but that's not really here nor there, I suppose. Until then, I hope you had a great April Anger year season, whatever this counts as. I hope to see you next year. And until then, bye.